So, John, welcome. Why don't you give us an introduction, just a little bit about yourself for those of the people who don't know you, and some of your background and how you came to start working with Occupy.
Yes, I'd be glad to do that. My experience in activism did not start until I mistakenly ran into the Occupy movement here at McPherson. I was passing by one night and noticed a group of about 20 youthful individuals who were camped and in sleeping bags underneath what we became known as the Freedom Tree, and they were an offshoot from Occupy Wall Street. That the date was October the 30th, and the first night they spent out here was October the 1st. So it was the September 30th to October the 1st was the first night we spent out here at McPherson Square, and I just happened to be passing by and saw them. And I asked them what they were doing, and they were talking about economic issues and social issues that really concerned me. I've been in the workforce for close to 30 years, and I've never seen things as bad as they are today, and a lot of people are feeling the effects of a bad economy and the fallout from housing and jobs and underemployment all across the country. So I became involved in the activist movement here with Occupy. It's the first experience I had with it, and I've kind of learned as I've gone, as all of the other activists have. We began to set up our tents here in McPherson, and while we did that, more and more people came. There were more interested folks coming from all around the region, people bringing food and clothing, people of all ages, all religious backgrounds, just about every persuasion, political persuasion you could think. Well, politicians even came through here. Jesse Jackson came through here at one point. So we knew that our message was correct. We knew what we were doing was right. We knew that it was justified. We weren't here out of want. We were here out of a need to make a statement that things needed to change, and that's why we began to camp out here in the park. And we fully acknowledged that by setting up tents here in McPherson, that it was against the law, it was breaking the code of no camping overnight, but the park police seemed to accept the fact that we were here and they didn't run us out. So as things progressed, we became a little bit more emboldened in our actions. We began to march up and down K Street, which is the major corridor in Washington, D.C. I guess you could call the lobby groups and the corporate groups. Every corporation that is something is holding an office space, occupying an office space in some of these high rises which tower above us. Every single corporation, every PAC, every political group, every lobby group has a space here that they rent and that they use to influence their voice in Congress. And we were seeing issues with laws being passed that were generally to the advantage of corporations and PACs, interest groups, and not to the interest of ordinary citizens like we were.
So you've been there in McPherson since the beginning, and from what I understood, the brief discussion we have, Tony has been a big part of the Occupy DC movement. So why don't you put Tony on and let him introduce himself a little bit?
Okay, be glad to. Yes, I have actually been here since the beginning, as Tony has been. Tony came a little later, but I'm not going to speak for Tony, but Tony was actually, at one point, was homeless. And we were drawing the sympathetic ear of people who were homeless and who were coming to stay with us because they had no place to stay. And we were providing for their needs. We actually set up a kitchen and a library, and we had teach-ins, and we had our own form of system of decision-making called the General Assembly. And we would at times have as many as 300 or 400 people surrounding each other in a circle discussing issues and coming to consensuses on what we were going to do about those issues. And we formed committees, and we went forward. And Tony joined us, I think, was it in October, so he was here pretty much from the beginning too. So if you'd like, I'll let him speak to you for a second.
Yeah, that would be great.
Hello.
Hi, Tony. Thank you for joining us tonight. Sorry for the little delay, but that's sort of how live stream works occasionally. Thanks for being so patient. So, why don't you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about how you came to the movement and what your current role is in Occupy DC?
Well, my name is Tony Davis. I've been with Occupy DC since October 6th. And I initially came here, as John said, I came through the park, and I was wondering what was going on here. I saw a few individuals here, young folks gathering, and I guess it was discussing the same issues that John was talking about, economic and housing issues. And I sat in on a couple of meetings, and what I noticed, first and foremost, being a former military man, I noticed it was not organized. So my thing was bringing organization. Initially, when I came down here to this park, down this way, I went to LaFont Plaza to try and do a hunger strike right in front of the White House, because I felt that I was homeless, and I'm a veteran. Being a veteran, I did not feel that it was right for a veteran to be out on the street. So I was going to form a hunger strike and a petition for Obama to come out and address me. I was very serious about that. I was going to do a hunger strike, but then I walked about Occupy and started hearing the voices of these people here in the camp, and they shared the same issues that I was thinking about also. And I sat there, sat for about a week, just observing, just watching and observing anything that was going on. I know some things that were going on, but I liked the issues that they were bringing up, and like the thing that they were talking about doing to fight this war, this incredible war that they were fighting. So I wanted to join. And I joined silently. I was a quiet voice. I just observed. More than anything, I just observed everything that was going on. And I came upon the leadership of a group called the Progressive Black Caucus.
Mm-hmm.
I ended up being the leader in that group, and as we began to form, and that's when the park police came in. That's about the time. What was that? That's about the time when they kicked us out of the park.
Mm-hmm.
But when they kicked us out of the park, I didn't want it to end like that. I was angry when that happened, because I thought that we were doing, Occupy was doing something to really make some noises there, especially with the set of dreams. So what I did is started a visual down at Frederick Douglass House to bring attention down there. Now, what I feel is that the Frederick Douglass House is the perfect platform to bring all the issues concerning the United States, or all around the world. As a matter of fact, right to Frederick Douglass' doorstep. I felt that it's a perfect platform for that, and I want to move on from there. So I've been there for the last month or so, performing visuals and trying to get the people in Anacostia to revitalize the spirit of Frederick Douglass. Because down there, there's 97% poverty. There's the unemployment rate is like 13%, but it's probably 25. It's probably double the rate, but especially with the black men. And I wanted to address those issues down there. And the community down there wide open. They're ready for something to happen down there, but I wanted to make a difference down there in that community. So I took it upon myself to form a group to get down there and really outreach in that community.
Okay, can I interrupt for just a minute, because you're making some important points that I want to repeat. First of all, you came to the movement, quietly, and you observed, and then you saw something that needed to be done, so you just quietly and naturally helped organize people to get that done. And now, as I understand it, and you spoke to Anacostia, that you're actually one of the primary organizers and the ralliers for the Anacostia neighborhood. And I was wondering how that community, because that community is in desperate straits, very difficult situation, how is the community responding to your efforts to organize and help them rise up and speak out?
Well, yes, sir. Initially, when we first got down there, they realized that we wanted to make a presence more than anything else. It wasn't just make a presence. Come down there at least weekly to let them know, hey, look, we are here. We pass out flyers. We we outreach, talk to some people in the community, and they welcome us with open arms. It's like they're waiting for something down there. They really are waiting for something to happen down there. So we're excited about being in that community because we feel like something's going to happen down there, and they're prime ready for this thing. I really do believe that, and that's my heart.
And so do you guys do actions and activities down there in order to maintain a presence? Can you tell us a little bit of detail about what actually happens? Do you do marches? Do you do meetings? Do you do outreach? Do you do meals?
Yes,
just kind of tell us what you're doing down there.
Yeah, well, right now we have themes that we go. There are themes that we use to go by. The first theme that we're using is to revitalize the spirit of Frederick Douglass. That's the number one thing we're using right now. Actually, myself, I did a single visual down there on my own. I went down 12 o'clock midnight one night and stayed till 6 o'clock in the morning. And the park rangers came out. They questioned me and everything, but they were very kind and everything. But I explained to them exactly why I was there, to bring awareness to the community about the Frederick Douglass House. My thing is to awaken the people in that community, because they are, to me, are the voices of Frederick Douglass. They are the voices, and they need. I'm not going to ramble on, but they just need to wake up again. And that's our mission, is to wake up those people down there by outreach and also by just talk to the people. The thing is talking to the people. We have to outreach and talk to people, get to hear their opinions, hear their voices of what they're more concerned about. The reputation alone scares a lot of folks.
Right.
And it's old reputation, really.
Well, that's, actually we have a viewer on that's from the Baltimore area, and is familiar with the area, and I know it's, haven't been through there myself. It's a pretty intimidating area, but to know that
Yes,
the people are rising up and speaking out, and
yes,
they're doing so, it sounds like, in a positive manner, which is really encouraging.
Yes, sir. Very true.
I love to hear that. So the other part of this question that I wanted to ask you while I have you on is that, as a ex-military man, an organizer, your observation of Occupy was that it was somewhat disorganized and chaotic.
Yes, sir.
I'm paraphrasing. So how do you think that has evolved over time? In your opinion, does there still seem to be issues? What are some of the challenges around that, and what are some of the solutions that you offer as an organizer and an activist and as an occupier?
Well, as an organizer, as an occupier for myself, I have to speak for myself as a former military man, ex-Marine, former Marine Corps. I lead by example more than anything else. I'm not just a talker or a doer. I set the example. I try to set the example for others to follow. And I'm an observer. I sit there and I observe and watch everything I do. And then, at the right time, there's time and place for anything. At the right time, I'll say something, not to intimidate anything, but just give words of wisdom.
Right.
There are a lot of young folks. Out here that are willing to listen, and they saw me sitting around. And they know that words that come out of my mouth, they come very not that much, but when I do speak, they hear wisdom. Mm-hmm. They're wise enough to realize that there's wisdom coming from my mouth. So when I speak, so they're I would say they're
receptive. They're receptive to your message. Oh, that's really good. This is completely impolite, but could I ask just roughly what your age is? 30 to 40, 40 to 50, something like that?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. I really encourage. I had the opportunity to work with a bunch of people this weekend, wide range of ages, and the younger people were so willing to have conversations and engage and ask questions. And actually, somebody told me that they appreciated my wisdom, which made me feel very old. but it's it's like it was an equal exchange, which was really good. So I'm gonna I want you to hang around if you have time, because I do want to come back to you, but I want to get John on here to talk about a few things, and you guys can share the phone back and forth if you can kind of tell what the conversation is. If you have something you want to add to it, please do.
Sure, I sure will. Hold on, sir. Hold on, please.
Okay, I'm back.
Hey, thank you. I'm really glad you brought Tony. What a great guy he is. So this is bonus. So just so everybody knows, John's really active in D.C. and he's been very helpful getting us to be able to talk to people. And John knows people and he has guests, so we benefit from John's presence there on the ground. So John, I got a bunch of questions for you because we bounced this around. So first of all, let's talk about the Occupy the Barn, because that's sort of what led us to doing the interview tonight. So why don't you tell us about Occupy the Barn and David and the trial, and just kind of give us an overview of what's going on there. And while you're doing that, I'm going to throw the images back up there, and I'll holler out when the Occupy the Barn space comes up.
Okay, I would also like to, before we turn to the barn, is to say thanks again to Tony Davis for coming out here to McPherson on a short notice. I had hoped to have several other activists here tonight, but there is a lot going on, which I will be telling you about. A lot of actions which are planned in the next week, and there are meetings and planning that are going on even as we speak. So this notion that the Occupy movement is dying or dead is quite a mistake. Absolutely quite a mistake to assume that activists have just packed their tents, gone home, and forgotten about it. Trust me when I tell you, not as a warning, but as just a fact check, that there are committees and people meeting right now in the Occupy DC Resource Center and Frederick Douglass House, and we're discussing a lot of things right now. So I would again like to thank Tony Davis for coming out and gracing us with his presence and his wisdom. And I would also like to add a few other facts about the Anacostia situation, because we think that it is such a profound issue in the United States. This is the nation's capital, and Anacostia is known as Ward number 8. There are 8 wards in the city, and it is a fact that DC Fiscal Policy Institute did a study, and they found that 25% of the residents of Anacostia are unemployed. That is the number of people. 1 in 4 people are out of work, and they are African American people. That is the definition of a depression. So Ward 8 in the nation's capital, just this side of the river, is in a depression. Not only that, it's even worse that in Ward 8, 1 in 2 people are on stamps. They're receiving some type of assistance, which means that most of the people in Anacostia are impoverished. While on the other hand, in Ward 3, only 1 in, I think it's 1 in 20, I'm reading here, 1 in 20 people, less than 5%, receive any type of assistance in the other wards, which means also that the wage disparity is the highest, or among the highest, of any nation, of any city in our nation. So there's a real big issue here when we've got huge inflows of money and corporations in this city, but we have one ward, which is predominantly African American, that is greatly impoverished, and that's in our nation's capital. And that's been going on for quite some time, and nobody has done anything to address this issue. I mean, they've done things to address the issue, but they haven't done things that have resulted in a change. And when Tony comes down here and stands every Saturday, he spends every Saturday at the Frederick Douglass House and outreaching to people, and we think that outreach is the key to this. We know that we're on the right path, and he is no stranger to activism, and he knows what he's doing. Now, I did want to turn to the OccuBarn and what all of that stood for. I didn't mean to take so long on that topic, but I just wanted to make sure that it was understood, the dire situation in Anacostia. But for those that are listening, the OccuBarn was a structure which we built in the park out of timber and nails. We had a General Assembly one night. This was in November, in the middle of November, because the weather was getting worse in the park. We had no place, we had no office space which we could have our meetings. We were basically borrowing the local coffee shops, and they were only open until 6:30 or 7 o'clock, and then we'd be basically out in the tents, which we had out in the park, and there were some very cold nights here. So at a General Assembly, we agreed that we would build our own house here in the park. So we requisitioned a architect and a builder. An architect gave us a blueprint, which we agreed to. We paid about $1,100 to a designer, and he built prefabbed slabs of A-frames, brought them here at 11 o'clock at night. This was on December the 3rd. And he drove his truck in here with these A-frames. It looked like a major project, but out of nowhere, people just started coming into the park because they knew that he was coming at a certain time. We helped him offload the truck, and within 2 hours, we had choreographed an assembly of this huge house. I don't like calling it a barn, but that's how the term just set. It's known as the OccuBarn. If you go on Twitter and type in hashtag OccuBarn, OCCUBARN, you'll see tweets on the matter. And there's been quite a bit of tweeting because it's been quite an issue. What happened was we assembled this structure, the OccuBarn, we assembled it, and by the next morning, the police had come in and surrounded us and told us that we needed to take it down. And they gave us about an hour to take it down. So as we were discussing the removal of this barn or whether we were going to keep it here, the police started coming in and putting barricades around the park. They closed it off. The media started coming in. Horses, they started bringing horses and reinforcements. And next thing you know, this park was full of media, people from all over the city. There were a good 1,000 people in the park. I took pictures of it. Unfortunately, though, in the melee, my phone was lost, and I lost most of my photos, but I was able to retrieve some of the photos that I sent up on Twitter. In the fiasco that followed, the police surrounded us. We had an emergency General Assembly right under the barn. It would have been great if we could have kept that structure. We argued that the structure was not permanent because it was not anchored to the ground. It was just a wooden structure which could easily have been picked up and moved. It was about 30 feet tall, about 20 feet wide. Those aren't exact measurements. About maybe 15, I'd say, no, it was about 20 feet wide, 30 feet long, and 25 feet tall. So it was a good size of a garage, let's say, large enough for us to fit between 50 and 75 people for a General Assembly and protect them from the weather. Well, the police weren't having anything of it. The National Park Service gave us an ultimatum that by 12 o'clock, if we didn't have the barn removed, they were going to come in and make us remove it. About that time, the police started coming in with horses surrounding us, and they started putting up tape, and a group of people climbed up onto the top of the rafters and began a siege which lasted 10 hours. At one point, it became very contentious because as word of this got out, more and more people came. Everybody who was involved with Occupy DC basically surrounded the barn. The police put up barricades. They put up police do not cross lines. There were several arrests. By the end of the night, the police ordered everybody to get off the barn or they were going to start destroying the barn. So they came in. People refused to leave. At this point, they brought a cherry picker in and started taking people off the rafters, and they arrested them for failure to obey an emergency order. Some of the people were charged with federal crimes, or I think they were all charged with federal crimes, but as the case went through the court, Jeff Light, who was, by the way, a volunteer attorney, he has volunteered on all of our cases. He and Ann Wilcox have done a phenomenal job at representing all of the Occupy court issues. Many of the court issues have actually been dismissed because there was no merit. In some cases, there was just out-and-out inaccuracies in the reports made by certain officers, which resulted in dismissal of cases. But in this particular case, Mr. Jeffrey Light was able to argue down to misdemeanors most of the cases. In fact, some of the cases were actually dismissed. There were 31 arrests, and by the time the case went to trial, there were 11 people that were on trial and 2 deferments. The judge, Judge Wingo, was very, very supportive, and in the final sentencing, she was very lenient on what types of sentences she gave to the defendants. Everybody was found guilty except for one person who was on trial who they could not identify through photos, and her case was dismissed.
Mm-hmm.
The fines ranged from $50 fines to one gentleman, Mr. Gibbons, who was actually charged with not only failure to obey a police order, but I believe, trying to see what that says. But his fines were a little bit more serious because the judge said he did put the police in jeopardy by being on top of the bar and not cooperating with them at that point.
He put the police in jeopardy, not the police that were climbing up, pulling at him. Okay, that's an interesting observation.
Right, that's how the judge found it. My personal view of what happened and my observation kind of goes in line with what the judge said at the end of the trial. These are the exact words of Judge Wingo. She said at the conclusion that we've heard significant expressions of the defense of persons and property. I find it unfortunate that the police can protect us from a decision we made about political expression. She continued, the police created this emergency situation by showing up. And that's what the judge said.
That was a fantastic statement.
Absolutely, and it goes to the crux of the matter. If you ask me, my opinion, that there really was no emergency here. It was an emergency until they defined it as an emergency. But that the police have that ambiguous, can make that ambiguous assessment in civil matters. Really, what was their emergency of? Were we damaging grass? No. Were we occupying a space? Yes. Were people in harm's way? No. None of those. I mean, if you look at the footage online, all you just do is look at Occupy, you can see that the police presence there was what's making the scene a fiasco. But the sentencing was extremely light. Most of the defendants received a $100 fine. There were 8 people who were underneath the bar who stayed under it, didn't climb up into rafters. They were given $100 fines, but those fines were suspended. Nobody received jail time. All of the defendants were asked to pay $50 to the Victims of Violent Crimes Fund. That was the sole amount of penalty. Basically, our barn was in existence less than they spent time in court. They spent over 20 hours in court, and that barn was only up for about 15 hours.
Well, that just shows it's like all the other cases that there's a disproportionate show of enforcement based on the action that would probably be pretty benign if it was just left to occur on its own.
But Mark, it goes even farther than that. If you had, in this country, if you had this much attention being paid to what the banks are doing, if you had this much attention being paid to what the institutions and the PACs that are unscrupulously funneling money to their own pockets, I'm talking about Bank of America and Wells Fargo, and people who have robo-signed millions and millions of mortgages against Americans. If you had this much attention being paid by the Security Exchange Commission on the hedge funds on Wall Street, you wouldn't have the issues we have in this country today. You wouldn't have a need for an Occupy movement. You wouldn't have a need for any movement because people would be economically sound. We have had more incidents with police in this park over trivial matters. And I don't want to say trivial like I don't have respect for the law. I do have respect for the law. I just think that our attention and our use of our police is being focused in the wrong direction. And that's where the crux of the problem is in our country right here today. We're focusing on people in parks and trying to make but trying to make a social and an economic statement about bad conditions. The police are focusing on them, what they're going to do. And they should be focusing on these institutions who have lost integrity and have lost the moral right. That's what we need to refocus our energies on.
That's a good point, and it's the one I say that, all the police attention and all the resistance of the movement to the police serves to distract from the larger issue. We lose focus of the larger issue because we have this little kind of niggling problem there, with the police. But I think the police are not the problem. The police are the symptom of the problem. It's one of many symptoms of the problems, which is just out of control greed and the accumulation of concentrated wealth and power. So that was really accurate what you said. If as much attention went to financial institutions and just all institutions as is focused on a small little Occupy camp, there would be no need for any of it. It's wonderful. I want to move on and get you to speak to a couple of the other things that you've been involved with. Occupy the offices, Occupy the banks, and then I know you guys are about to host Occupy Caravan. So, would love to hear what you guys have planned for them. I was with Asheville, and they did a big day there. It was quite enjoyable. So, let's talk about Occupy the office first.
Okay, yes, the office. We've had a very generous contribution of office space from IPS. IPS donated office space to us, and a union, SEIU, donated the rent for that office space. And what that enabled us to do was to move our operations from an information tent out in McPherson into an office on K Street. So now the Occupy DC movement has this space, which we are very happy to have. We have computers, internet access, we have phone banks, and we have 4 rooms where we can have simultaneous meetings in. Right now, there are 3 meetings going on. There's an action meeting, there's an Occupier Homes meeting, and there is a Sleepful Protest meeting going on. There is also, speaking of another meeting, about the caravan. So all of these plans are going on. It's funny how media sometimes focuses on what they can see. It's what they can't see that they should be focusing on. There are plenty of examples of what media has failed to do in our country. I'm talking about old media. Just because we're not out in the park doesn't mean we're not planning and working on improving our community. Now, what is the benefit of the office? The office takes us to a level of credibility which we didn't have before. It would be great if every Occupy movement could have office space, but that's just not the case. So we consider ourselves very gifted and blessed. We thank God every day that we can go to this office. We run the office every day, 7 days a week, from 10 to 10. We are always looking for people in our community. We're a transparent organization. We're always looking for volunteers and people who want to become involved. And our office is open to anybody who's interested in working in their community to improve issues and work on issues. Our office is, the lease on our office is at least good for 6 months. So we have another 4 months of lease for that office. And some of the committees that work in our office, we have our newspaper, which is a completely independent grassroots newspaper called the DC Mic Check. If you would like to read some of the articles on our newspaper, we publish everything online. You can go to www.dcmiccheck, that's DCMICCHECK.org. We've had about 8 issues of this newspaper come out. Anything that we have worked on in activism, any successful action we've had, even some of the unsuccessful actions we've had, we write about in our newspaper. We have our own editing board, and we publish both hard copy and soft copy. We are always looking for writers and editors, and that's just one of our committees. Another committee we have is the Occupy Our Homes outreach program, which is presently assisting 9 people in our community to prevent the foreclosure on their homes. And our Occupy Our Homes DC is on Twitter and also on the web. We recently had an article in the DC Mic Check about a lady by the name of Deborah Harris. There was an incident where Fannie Mae and I think J.C. Morgan Chase had a dispute on a loan for her house. So we are working closely with her. Our attorneys, Jeff Light and Ann Wilcox, are assisting her in preventing the foreclosure on her home. That case is still ongoing in the courts. There is a lot of other stuff going on with the Occupy movement. We have our own radio show, which is actually out in Anacostia. A fine lady by the name of Mariah has been running that, and she goes out into the field and interviews people and puts them on the air.
Can I interrupt for a second, John? Is the
sure.
radio show like a community FM, low power thing, or is that something that people can tune into from a distance?
They can tune into that. It's on the air. It's on the web. It's web radio, and we record and we archive all of our interviews. And some of the interviews are actually quite interesting. We've had interviews with some of the most interesting activists in the region. We've had a gentleman by the name of Jerry Nelson who wrote a book about Occupy, and he's on there. We've had folks from Occupy the Hood on there. Folks that were involved in Occubarn are on there. So I can't give you the information right off the top of my head. I think it's Occupy Air DC is the Twitter handle. I have to verify that.
Okay.
But I can get that to you.
Okay. Yeah, I would love if you'd follow up, so we can tune into it. I mean, they're doing the radio equivalent of what we are.
Right.
So that is really interesting to me. I'm really glad to hear that. So I just want to touch back on the Occupy the Office thing. So by virtue of a union being willing to support the space, you guys have a functional, essentially a community activism space, right? And you're open to all groups to come in there to do organized planning. You got communications there. It's like your command center for DC Occupy. Is that accurate?
That is exactly what it is.
It's outstanding. I'm so happy to hear that.
Yeah, it really is fantastic. I'm so excited. Some days, I'm beside myself sometimes. I wake up in the middle of the night and I got to go to work in the morning, but I want to go down to the office and work on something, whatever. It's really exciting. And it's also a focal point. Activists just keep popping in. People come from north and south. And on that note, also, I wanted to bring up the Occupy Caravan. As you know, Occupy Caravan is a bus tour of the United States that's going on right now. There are series of buses touring the country, going from Occupy movement to Occupy movement, and they're scheduled to be up here on Thursday, which I believe is the 29th of June. There will be 3 or 4 buses of people, about 120 people coming into town. So we've been doing the logistics, the fooding, the planning for food and places to stay. We've got some actions planned for those several days that they're going to be here. And we're really excited about our brothers and sisters in Solidarity. They've come all the way from, I believe, from Portland, or I'm not sure. I know it's out from California, but they've come up and down the coast, and they've picked up people as they've gone, and we're really getting excited. We've been collecting canned goods all month, getting ready for them. We have the Occupy Peace House, which is about 5 blocks away from here, where a number of the activists stay at night. And they're doing the cooking right now, even as we speak, getting ready to feed lots of hungry occupiers on the bus trip coming to Occupy Caravan. They'll be coming into McPherson sometime Thursday afternoon. We're going to set up some tents and some information booths here back in the park again. I may not have made this clear. I think Tony spoke to this, but on February the 4th of this year, the police surrounded our park and literally drove us out. I mean, it was very violent, very aggressive, very humiliating. The places where we had been staying, our tents were basically run over by heavy equipment, and they scrapped everything up, and they left maybe 15 or 20 tents left. That was out of about 250 tents. They confiscated everything. Nobody got any of their personal items back. They just threw it away as if it were trash. And it was very upsetting, to say the least. I know we weren't here legally, and there are people out there who probably argue that we shouldn't have been here in the first place. But we weren't here out of want. We were here out of need. There were homeless people out here. There were people, activists trying to make a difference. But after that, we maintained a library and information tent here for several months, and then eventually those were taken down as well. So right now, there are no tents, no structures in McPherson. But on Thursday, we plan to set up more tents and more a library and distribute information for the Occupy Caravan people coming in.
And have you guys been coordinating with the park police on that, or you're just going to freelance it and see what happens?
We have not been coordinating with the park police. Our platform is, in essence, to take the public space of this park and use it for what its intended purpose is, and that's for common use, for people to use. We don't plan to occupy it indefinitely as we did before. The original occupation, the original tent cities that we set up were a strategy that we used to gain momentum on our movement. We didn't have a plan that they would last forever. We never planned to occupy these parks forever. We knew that there would come a time when we would need to evolve into Occupy 2.0. And we did. We occupied an office now. We occupy this office, and now we're working on Occupy version 3.0, which is leading a network of occupations across the country and networking with other groups and outreaching to the communities.
Outstanding. And then I'm going to do a little segue on that particular idea, because I've been in contact with Occupy Charlotte as we're running up to the DNC, and we're going to interview them on Thursday night this week. But I was wondering, is there, you mentioned you're trying to work with Occupies across the country. Do you guys have an outreach program where you're reaching out to a lot of these smaller occupies? Because I'm, listening to you, I can tell you Occupy Charlotte is starved for this kind of organization and action and participation. So I was wondering if you guys are reaching out, and if your outreach is to other occupies has been eagerly accepted, or how's that going?
Well, there is quite an outreach program. As you know, we just had the NATO summit up in Chicago, and there are varying counts of numbers of people who went up there, but there were buses and buses and buses of people from all over the country who went up to Chicago. And that is a form of outreach. When we communicate, when we get together on a big action, we reach out to each other via social networks, Facebook and Twitter. And there is not a formal template for reaching out, but we reach out to each other, and there's a lot of solidarity. A person who works at an Occupy movement in OWS and one who works in D.C. kind of understands what we're going through. We've all been through the fire, and it has been a very hot fire. There are a lot of people here who have been hurt by this, and they've sacrificed tremendously, so that when you speak to somebody in the term of solidarity and helping them, I mean, it's very difficult to just take 120 people that you don't know who are coming up on buses, find housing and food for all of them, but we do it. So there is quite a tremendous amount of outreach going on back and forth.
I love to hear that. That makes me optimistic, and I want to talk to you offline and see if maybe we can connect you guys with Charlotte. I would love to be able to do that. I have a question from the chat that wants to know if Occupy DC is supporting and going to the national gathering in Philadelphia.
Absolutely. We're going to be there. We're going to have not only another bus going up there, but we're going to have a number of people driving up there, taking their own vehicles up there. So we intend fully to staff those buses with whatever empty seats there are, and we plan to be there. We plan to be there in full force.
Outstanding. This is just getting better every minute. So let's move along. And poor Tony, is he just sitting there wondering what we're talking about? I wish we had a way for you guys to kind of listen and watch the show. But if he wants to chime in on anything, I would love to hear his input. Let's talk about the Occupy the Banks.
Occupy the Banks is a fantastic plan that we've got going on right now. It is in conjunction with what we call a sleepful protest. We have a group of folks here some of them are actually homeless, and one lady actually lost her home 2 years ago. But what they do is they choose a different bank to sleep in front of, and they lay their sleeping bags out and their personal belongings, and they actually stay in front of the bank. I did send a few pictures your way on that subject, I believe.
Yeah, I have. I've been running them. Yeah.
I actually ran a couple of videos too in front of the bank. I'm actually looking at the bank that we occupied the sidewalk in front of. There were actually several arrests in front of that bank. But the funny thing is the people weren't actually breaking the law. And Jeff Light came down to the bank when the arrests were about to happen, explained to the police officers what the law said, and they let the people go. So anybody can do it and occupy in front of a bank at night or even in the daytime, but you really do need to know what your codes, what your local city and state codes are, respective to what you can do, what you can't do on a sidewalk in front of a bank. You definitely don't want to be too close to the door. You don't want to block commerce, but you can certainly, under the First Amendment right, you can certainly stand in front with signs, placards, and statements and peaceably speak about why you think the bank is wrong, what it's doing. And certainly banks that have received millions and billions of dollars of money to bankroll their mistakes during the last 5 years, certainly they should not be foreclosing on millions of Americans the way they're doing right now. So our bank, Occupy the Bank program here, is actually something we're planning in the next few days where we have an action plan. I've sent you a photograph I took just this Saturday. We worked on a banner which is over 100 feet long. It says, "Notice of foreclosure, we are the 99%," and we intend to take that banner and unroll it in front of a bank. It is the most epic banner I have ever seen. We worked on that from 10 o'clock in the morning on Saturday until 4 a.m. on Sunday. We literally were out there in the sun. It was a very hot day, but we painted that thing, and it's the biggest banner I've ever seen.
I love it. It's beautiful.
I tell you, you're going to see some photographs of that thing when we unroll it. We're going to shut down a bank. When I say shut down, I mean we're going to be in front of the bank.
That's
We're going to be in front of the bank.
fantastic.
We're going to do a mock foreclosure of this bank.
I think that's great. I love it. I think more. I love the numerous examples of the intersection of art and activism that DC is doing. I think we need more of that, because art is such a valuable tool in communicating ideas in what is, can be a pretty edgy but non-threatening way, so people respond to it. And besides that, we are a culture of entertainment, so if you can plant your seeds of an idea with an entertaining twist to it and accomplish something, that's pretty amazing. So the banners and the tents and the signs and all the artwork and all the the parades done in satire
really
and good
funny.
humor is so valuable.
You got to have a sense of humor. In fact, I'm laughing right now because a gentleman by the name of Ed, while we had been sitting here in McPherson, several of the quadrants of the park have green fencing on it, and he has just spent the last hour since this interview began weaving plastic bags into the weaving of the green fence to keep people off the grass. You see, they're trying to regrow the grass from the occupation.
Right.
And no, Ed is correcting me. He's saying they're trying to keep us out, which is more than growing grass. But, yeah, I'll agree to that, too. But, yeah, you have to have a sense of humor because while we've been doing this interview, he has been meticulously weaving bags into the mesh of this fence, which are not going to easily come out. And I think it says 99% on it. So, I'm looking at it from an angle. It looks like it says 99%. Oh, no, I'm being corrected. It says OWS. So they know that we're here. We're still here. It's beautiful. It's art. It's you call pop art. It just popped up. No one's going to take responsibility for it.
I love it.
And no one's going to get arrested for it neither.
If it's not too dark yet, you should take a picture of it before you leave tonight. I guess it's pretty dark outside. I'm looking out my windows.
It's twilight. It's pretty dark, but I think Tony's got his phone here. I'll ask him to go take a photo of it. Can you take a photo of it? And I'll have Tony email it to you. Maybe you can put it up.
Oh, yeah.
But that's just the art. Ed has been one of our favorite artists here. He's been coming here since, I think, November, putting up signs of different hope. Actually, he's been coming in since October, putting up signs of statistics and doing drawings and facts and things and putting up, and just they'd pop up like mushrooms, and they'd be there until the police took them down or whatever.
Put Ed on the phone. I want to ask him a couple of questions.
Okay, I'll be more than happy to do that. 1 second. Ed, would you like to talk? Being interviewed right now.
I don't care. I'll ask Ed questions.
OPN, yes. Hey.
Hello, Ed. This is Artister on OPN. You're live on the internet, being broadcast worldwide. Thank you for taking a moment to speak to us.
Well, as John mentioned, we're here at McPherson Square, which is right on K Street, right across the street from all the lobbyists. And there's maybe a handful of us who are, hell-bent on staying here in one way or another, keeping up a presence, because I think it is iconic, again, because of the location.
Right.
And the more they don't want us here is the more of an indication that we should be here.
Absolutely. You're definitely in the belly of the beast on K Street, and I'm the more I talk with John and the people that I've met from Washington, the more I think I'm going to have to make a pilgrimage there, because you guys are representing good. I love that you're an artist and you're doing pop-up guerrilla art, and you're just keeping things happening there. So tell us a little bit about what you do and why you're doing it.
Oh, well, I got a background in graphic arts, but I've done all kinds of different stuff. I made stained glass windows. I made kaleidoscopes. Just making enough money to get by, and now I'm living on my Social Security and trying to put every effort I've got into doing this. Not for me, because I got my check coming in, and geez, if they turn around and try to touch that, then you got the blue hairs from the AARP. And I know they don't want that, but it's for our kids, and I keep stressing that Occupy is the umbrella. Every other, Occupy Homes, Occupy the Courts, all of it would be made so much easier if we could get the money out of, the entire system. It's not just politics anymore; it's the entire system.
Right.
So that's where I'm coming from.
Well, we appreciate your work and all your commitment and your willingness to use art to convey a message, and I'm particularly thrilled to know that somebody is using cheap art, disposable materials. I firmly believe you can change the world with Sharpies and cardboard. So the weaving of the plastic bags into the green fence is brilliant. Congratulations for doing that, and thank you for taking a moment to speak to us, and we'll let you get back to your work. But thank you very much, Ed, and be strong and keep it up.
Thank you.
Okay.
Hey, John, you know some cool people, man. That's that's great. We need to get them lined up.
Yeah, I tell you, part of activism, part of the important thing is creating relationships amongst people and bridging gaps between people who don't have anything in common except for needs. And really what it gets down to is that people all are really more alike than unalike. And when we realize that in the world, there'll be less problems. I mean, the difference between an Arab, a Jew, and a Christian is really not that much. There's really not that much. They all live, they die, they want to have families, they want their children to be successful. And why we fight each other over issues of religion and economics is beyond me. Maybe I'm an idealist, but I would like to see a time come when those types of borders, where companies and countries don't need borders, and people can live in a unity and a respect for each other. There's a couple of other. I know you probably have some more questions for me about Occupy.
No, I want you to. You have the platform. Just take us where you think we need to go. That's what we need.
Definitely, and I really appreciate that, because there are a lot of people out there right now who have lost hope and who don't know what to do. They're stuck in jobs that are not earning the money they know they deserve. They're stuck in a rat race. They're stuck paying for homes that are worth less being sold than they have to owe the bank. There are people who have lost jobs, and there are a lot of people on the streets who won't even get to hear this broadcast. And like me and Tony, there are veterans who have paid a debt to our country, but oftentimes feel like our country's forgot about us. 25% of the people who are homeless are veterans, and a lot of those people are suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder. And although the VA has made tremendous gains in outreach and helping veterans, there's still a lot that needs to be done. I would say the people who are struggling, who don't know if they want to get involved in Occupy because of its reputation or whatnot, I would say that that's hogwash. I would say also that media, not all of media is bad, but media is owned by people who have a lot of money. Media is owned by people who are of the 1%. And we use the 99% as a cliche to speak in terms of people who have issues in common, but not all of the so-called 99% is willing to or will ever join Occupy. Now, we realize that. But we still can help each other in ways. We can still reach out in our communities and form sustainable structures that people can plug into and can derive satisfaction from and solutions from. For example, let's take a community garden. that's a very simple way of people getting together and taking a plot of land that's abandoned, maybe paying the back taxes on it or not, or just getting a permit from the city, or just not even getting a permit, but just planting rows of produce on it. And all of those people can share in its maintenance and benefit from the land. Or here's another example of a sustainable resource. People can have community bazaars. They can go to take all of the clothing and all of the appliances and all of the dishes they don't need and have a trade. And they can meet once a month and trade items that other people need. And that's a good way to save money. Another example of a sustainable resource would be people getting together and teaching each other how to cook, because people spend a lot of money on fast food and they spend a lot of money on restaurants, which could be plugged back in the community by teaching each other just simple things like using the kitchen again. And the food is a lot healthier. So there's many different ways that people in communities can kind of occupy their moment and their time and their zone and build something that the community can benefit from. You're only limited by your imagination and activism. If you see something that needs to be corrected, the state is not responsible. It is your responsibility. This notion that, well, someone's going to fix that for me, or we'll let the government worry about it. No, that's not what the purpose of government is for, in my view. The purpose of the people needs to be redirected towards the betterment of the people. There was a time in this country when corporations had charters, and which were basically permissions from their local community to exact business, and it was for the benefit of community. But corporations have become super corporations, and they are in essence sucking vitality from communities. When a corporation, and I hate to just keep hammering on Walmart, but I'm using it as an example for a reason. When a company like Walmart comes to a zone to set up business, you need to ask yourself a question. What is Walmart doing for the betterment of that community? If they're putting more back into it, hey, that's fine, then build Walmarts everywhere. But statistics are showing that that's not the case. Walmarts are closing down mom-and-pop organizations and businesses and employing people at the same rate, but they're taking the benefits and shoveling them up to Wall Street in the form of stock. And this is happening by lots of corporations. Corporations are doing this all over the country. A corporation like FedEx, for example, last year spent 3 times on lobbying than it did in taxes. For every dollar it spent on taxes, it spent $3 on lobbying. What is wrong with that picture? Corporations are, in essence, buying our government out from under our feet. It's not a government for the people and by the people. It's an incorporated government that we have here, and it all needs to be changed. I did want to say that there is hope. People can become involved in activism in their communities, even in small ways. They can become champions for helping other people, and that's what it really comes down to. By helping other people, you can actually help yourself in your own community. And building sustainable resources is a good way to do that. Now, there are some literatures out there that people can read that really help them understand what activism is all about. I don't want to say what those are because each person believes what they believe. I don't want to put that out there. But certainly there are letters like the letter from Birmingham jail, which kind of spells out what people need to do to prepare themselves if they want to get involved. Gandhi was a noted activist in his time and in his right. He did some things that were quite unexpected. You know, Jesus Christ was a radical, was one of the first radicals that ever lived. And even if you're not a Christian, some of his teachings and some of his things that he did were quite phenomenal. And he changed the world. One man changed the world. And it's not impossible that it can't happen again, that groups of people, whether they're through the Occupy movement or whether they're through other activists or just community functions, they can make changes in the world. listen, my friend, Tony did want to speak again about the Occupy Frederick Douglass Vigil. Can he make a few more comments?
Oh, absolutely. Put him on.
Okay. I'll be glad to do that. Here you go.
Hello.
Hi, Tony. Welcome back. Sorry
Hi, hello.
you had to take so long before you got a chance to speak again.
Yeah, you're kind of breaking up a little bit. Can you understand me?
Oh, yeah, you're good. I think your guy's
Okay.
battery's probably getting a little
Yeah.
tired, but go ahead.
I know John went on and on. He has a lot to say. We all have a lot to say, and I don't know where we are in this interview, but I would put this. I really love my people. I really love my people, and I want to represent my people well. Let me, excuse me, guys. Hold on. Excuse me. I'm sorry, that's not to interrupt. I want to say, sir, that, and can I be blunt with you, sir?
Yes, please do.
Let me tell you this. Basically, the white folks pretty much rose up, and Occupy, they rose up and with Occupy when their own government was threatening their lifestyles, But we as black people have always been here. We've always been here. We have always been here. We struggled through all the struggles. Black Panthers, we've been through all the struggles, and we really felt the pain. I'm in the communities, and I feel the pain, the pain of all the communities down there. The Anacostia, they are hurting down there.
Mm-hmm.
There's so much poverty down there, so much hurt down there. The people are really they're crying out, and the government is not hearing them at all. Not at all. So I'm down there as an activist, and if I have to be a martyr, I will be a martyr. I don't care. I love my people. But the thing I want to put out there is let you know, sir, is that I don't know where you are in this, but I just want you to know that where I feel about this and how I feel about my people, and that if you do anything else, please get this out. That everybody, some people know that where we come from in Anacostia, because it's very powerful down there. What we want to do down there more than anything else, our mission and purpose down there is to form like another Black Wall Street. You remember Black Wall Street in 1921?
Mm-hmm.
Hello?
Yes, I do. You know your history.
In 1921 there was a Black Wall Street. There was a great black community there where there had plenty of airplanes. They had everything to have a sufficient community. They kept money in the community, but what happened was that community was destroyed by Ku Klux Klan members, and that was in Tulsa in 1921. If you do the research on it, I don't know if you do it, but it's there.
Right.
The story's there. But we wanted to try and recreate that community down in Anacostia. Anacostia is the perfect place for that.
I think you're right. It is.
And recreate that community. But like I said, sir, we have always been here, and I hurt for my people. I really do. So,
well, I'm grateful that you're down there. I'm just so impressed, that you've kind of overcome your personal challenges, and that you're so generous of heart and spirit, and you're down there working with everybody, trying to make everybody's life better. One of the things we always talk about on OPN is collective effort for common good. I think it's a very important point you make, that the things that are going on now are not new to minorities. They've suffered this kind of injustice for almost all of history, as well as indigenous people.
Yes.
And their voices have not been heard. So I'm so thrilled that you're putting in the time and the work and helping people rise up and speak out. It's so inspiring, and I'm humbled and honored to be able to speak to you. So I appreciate the work you're doing. And we have a chat stream running on the side. People are really giving you a shout out, and they're very supportive. All these people watching and listening tonight are very supportive of what you're doing, and they understand the issues in Anacostia, and not only there, but all over the country. So be strong and keep it up, because you're not alone, and we're going to make a difference.
I understand. Yeah. I make one more point, but one more certain point. I followed a lot of teachers, Malcolm X, Marcus Garvey. Those are my teachers, even Farrakhan. But one thing that one thing that the brother did when he went to Mecca. That's Malcolm X. When he went to Mecca, one thing you noticed when he went to Mecca that all his brothers were white, black, Chinese, whatever, they were his brothers. He called them his brothers. When he came back, is when he got killed because he wanted to change the whole philosophy. He wanted to change everything, but he realized that we went over there, they were all his brothers,
Right.
And that thing really changed my life also.
Yep.
When I went down to and I had a concert with some of my white brothers there, I told them the story about Malcolm X when he went over there and how he saw the change over there, how he knows that his brothers, all the brothers were white, black, Chinese, whatever, But I let my brother here know, and Costa knows the same thing, and they felt that story, you know what I mean? So that thing it's not about race. It's about us coming together in unity and change this thing, And if our choir doesn't stand, who's going to? If we die, it's over.
That's true, and I'm so glad that you're talking about unity, because there's so much fragmentation amongst people who want ultimately the same thing. They want better lives for themselves and their families, much more equality, much more justice, but there's fragmentation on how to get there, and it makes me feel so optimistic to hear people talk about, okay, yeah, but ultimately we got to unify. So that's wonderful, and I appreciate you bringing that message to us. The people you work with are extremely fortunate to have you there working with them, and I hope to meet you one day.
Yeah, I think you said you would want to me. I'd love to meet you also, but you're kind of breaking up. I can't understand what you're saying now. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can, but I suspect your batteries are going down.
Yeah, that's probably it might be the battery. You're breaking up now pretty bad now. I'll give you back to John for the last say, all right?
Okay, thank you so much, Tony, for all your work and everything you do.
Yes, sir, and thank you very much for receiving us, sir.
Hey, Mark.
Hey, I think your battery must be kind of about to give out, because Tony said we're breaking up a good bit.
Okay.
So if you have any last thoughts, let's go ahead and wrap it up, because I don't want to lose you in the middle of something.
Yeah, I would definitely like to, first of all, thank you and your staff for being so gracious to have us on tonight on this wonderful show. I would also like to say to the listeners and the viewers to please stay tuned. There's a lot more to come. We have great plans for this area with Occupy DC. We have a wonderful newspaper that we publish every month, a wonderful newspaper called DC Mike Check. You can go to www.dcmikecheck.org. It is a free newspaper. You can subscribe and get it online sent to you. We also print hard copies. We are in need of a little bit of support, both in writing and in editorial, if anybody wants to join. But some of the articles you read here, we speak about some of the actions we've taken. We speak about some of the things that are going on in the economy. We speak about things that people can do. And again, it's a very good resource to tap into, both for information and for reading. We also have our radio program, which is ongoing on Monday nights. They have the radio show, and I'll get you more information on that. We have our own Occupy blogger on Twitter. It's @CoolRevolution, and this person writes about a lot of the actions and things that are going on in the Occupy movement. We have many committees that are still ongoing and working in the community, and we plan to go forward and keep the fire burning.
That's outstanding, and I want to say that there could not be two more eloquent and engaging spokesmen for your part of the movement than you and Tony. And we're so grateful for you to take the time and energy to spend with us, and staying out there in the park and doing the good fight, and for letting us talk to Ed and being patient with our technical problems. The whole chat stream is asking me to please extend their best wishes, their gratitude for your participation, and to please also communicate that to Tony. We're very grateful. And they're already asking for another interview with you.
Okay, great. I'd be glad to. And I promise the next interview I will have more photos for you. I told you, it's weird. As you become involved in something like this, you realize the value of it, and it's an historical record. I've used my iPhone to both write articles for the newspaper and to take photographs and video. And I have over 2,000 photographs now. And I think I've written like 5 articles for the newspaper and taken a whole bunch of videos, little mini videos on this one iPhone. Can you believe it? And by the way, this is not a plug for Apple. I'm just saying that you can do wonderful things with technology today, with the social media, with Twitter and Facebook and all the other medias, Instagram. Really, Mark, there's no excuse with today's technology and with what we have, our capabilities. There is no excuse, absolutely no excuse, for our societies, our countries to have the problems we have today, as compared to back in the 60s when information was slow to formulate and slow to flow, and laws were antiquated. I can probably have maybe I could appreciate why things were the way they were. But in today's world, there's no excuse for there to be the conditions that we live under. Not that they're so terrible in this country; they're worse in other countries.
Right.
And I wrote an article about Syria too. What's going on in Syria with our brothers and sisters over there in places like Homs and Damascus is infuriating, absolutely infuriating. And we should be warned that kind of thing can happen anywhere. If we allow it to happen in one place, it can happen anywhere.
That's a true lesson to be learned. And I just want to repeat, like you said, you weren't advertising for Apple, but this is what I say all the time. We have these tools at our disposal. We need to use them for good instead of evil, and we need to use them for substance instead of entertainment, because we can make such a positive movement if we can use those tools to take down the corporations that just inflict the misery on us. So we are all morally and ethically obligated to do that. So
one of my favorite people that ever lived is Mahatma Gandhi, and he had some very good things. The life he lived was the world he wanted to be, and he said, "Be the change in the world you want to see." And that's what we need to do, each and every one of us. Everybody is responsible. If a person walks by somebody and they're homeless or they're hurting or something's wrong, and they should reach out. Be the good Samaritan. Some people are not capable of doing that, and I can understand not everybody has that, but this is a fact. We were sitting in this park. This just now happened. A man walked by me and Tony and gave us pizza because he saw what we were doing. He knows that we're interviewing with you, and he just gave us pizza because he knows we haven't eaten tonight. And that's the kind of world we're trying to create. I know it sounds idealistic, but we need to get away from greed and selfishness and get back to time-honored traditions of the golden rule and respecting one another. So we want to formulate our lives. We want to try to live our lives to being the change we want to see in the world. And that's what it's really all about.
Well, thank you so much for being a good example and a catalyst and being so inspiring to the rest of us. You're getting a lot of love from our channel, and I'm going to let you and Tony go for the evening. Thank you so much for talking to us. I want to thank all the people that have watched and listened tonight, and thank you for your patience while we got up and running. want to say thanks to my friend Wes, who we're going to start working on that little issue here shortly. The OPM production team, I love you all. Thank you for the good work. Clearly, thank you for putting this show together and facilitating it. Zena will be editing it and getting the link out before too much longer. And
okay.
I want you, and we'll share that with you, John, and I'll put it in an MP3 so you can deliver it to the radio station if you want to, and they're welcome to put it up. So
great, yeah, I appreciate it. Now there'll be other things coming down the pike with the movement. If you want to follow me on Twitter, I pretty much send out what other plans, whatever events, whatever actions. It's all transparent. There's nothing to hide. We try to put everything out there, what we're doing. And you can follow me on Twitter. My handle is @John Zangas. And I don't know if you can put that up on your
I
site,
just did. Yep, we got it up. You say it, we put it up, buddy.
There are other plenty of really good tweeters and Facebook pages out there that can inform you. Again, anybody can get involved in activism. It's not a bad word. It's something that can be done, and it's simple. The mission of it is simply to improve your life, the life around you, using your own resources. That's all it really comes down to, using the own resources of your mind and your hands and your thoughts and improving the world around you, and that's what it's all about.
That's a wonderful way to wrap it up. Thank you, John. Give our best to Tony. Our much love and appreciation to both of you. Be strong and keep up the good work, and stay in touch. You and I will be talking soon, all right?
Good. Coming right back at you. Love you guys, too.
Have a good night.
Bye-bye.